this month. So welcome everyone again to the another monthly community call. Basically, if you're new here, what we do is that we update what have happened on the last month related to governance and the project as a whole, and also we present a bit of what are the plans for the next month. And today we're going to have two extra presentations. One is where we have presentation about the new Gateway V2 and a new model of scripts that we have been working on to add to make it easier to use the to customize your strategies. And the Latoken connector that we have recently added. I'm not sure if it's on the main version yet, but we'll have a good presentation at the end to where Latoken will present the exchanges and the connectors. Right. So as always, not always good to remind that 8 bot tokens there is no token sale. We haven't done a token sale, and we never do. All the tokens that exist will be distributed for participation to the Hummingbot project ecosystem. Right. So uh, right. So a quick heads up of what happened with the governance proposals. So we had a new proposal to approve to bridge HBOT tokens to Avalanche. This will take a while to execute because Nomad Bridge is still uh, uh, finalizing the bridge itself to Avalanche. So we'll keep everyone updated as soon as it is available on the tokens will be available on the new chain. And also, yes, these tokens we also add to the snapshot voting system. So if you bridge them to the Avalanche, you will still be able to participate in governance. Another one was the just bit bureaucratic stuff that align the bylaws of the foundation with the Cayman policies and procedures. Right. So uh, we do have an open proposal right now. That's that to add the FTX perpetual connector. It was created and deployed by CoinAlpha. So there is a reward for them for the work that have done. And basically, adding this connector will also improve the foundation uh, stream of funds to increase the ecosystem even more. So take a look, read the proposal, and if you haven't already, and make sure you vote on it. So quick heads up of the HBOT location, right? So on the first epoch, we had the idea is to distribute 30 million HBOT tokens. So we had 19 million and something approved for this epoch. And we have the 300K HBOT that's related to the FTX connector proposal that's still open for voting. And we still have this amount that's 9.9 million tokens that we still have space to be allocated in the proposal. Reminder that the Epoch one ends at the end of this month, and the next one we'll be doing a review of lessons learned during the Epoch and what we plan to do on Epoch 2 related to token allocation and distribution and projects. So we have already from the approved budget, we have already distributed 8.5 million 8-ball tokens. And a quick breakdown here where we had them is that we had the minor distribution from Coin Alpha, we had the strategy creation. So we still have some of them, we have the budget approved. Uh, on the second column is the amount that we have already distributed from that budget. And on the third column, we have what's still available for the community to submit proposals and participate into this distribution. So as you can see, there is still a lot of open budget on each of these proposals. So if you're a developer, make sure to check the specific proposals and see how you can participate and request and be rewarded for your contribution to the Hummingbot ecosystem, right? So there's page one, and on page two, here the other one. So we have the start integrations still fully available. No new contributions have been added to that. And the other one are the bug hunt that unfortunately the system, we'll talk a bit more about it on the forward part, but apparently the bug system rewarding for bug hunt, bug fixes didn't attract much. But we'll talk about, but one of the plans to rework how we're going to reward this bug process. And also, we still have the airdrop for community developers. So there's 10K for each developer. All you need to do is to have at least one pull request created to the Hummingbot repository. So we still have 11 million HBOT tokens that have already the budget approved. That's still up for grabs. So yeah, just need for everyone to contribute and get a share of this reward distribution. So a quick reminder, we do have a public Notion page that's the reward schedule where we list all the proposals that have been approved, the governance proposal budget allocation, and all the process, all the respective improvement proposal requesting a part, a share of the reward allocated to each. So you can find the link on the announcements. There is a pin message there where with the link to open this reward proposal. So if you have requested, if you had one of the dev grant requests or something related to it that you were supposed to receive the HBOT tokens, but you don't see on this schedule page, reach our team out. We talk about it and we add it and add to the reward schedule page, and we prepare the reward payments. So we had, as mentioned on the proposal 3, on the governance proposal 3, we are always updating at the end of each month the circulated supply, because the minimum quorum needed to approve each of the proposals are now based on circulating supply. So currently we have 49 million 8-bot tokens circulating, and these are the new minimum quorum for each type of proposal that needs to be reached for the proposal to be approved, right? Next one, we have a quick heads up on what the foundation team is working on. And okay, sorry. So first one we're going to do as the at the end of the epoch, as you mentioned on the presentation of the plan, is that we are going to do a full review of the epoch. So uh, the key for this process is that we need the feedback from the community to talk about with us what worked, what didn't work, what should be improved. So this will be organized probably in a way where we start to create some Commonwealth threads, so we can keep the discussion more long term and a better register of the feedback from the community to improve the systems to the next epic review. So the second thing we have been working and discussing is to do a full rework on the governance system. We started the project with some assumptions on the how the governance system should rework. Some of them proved that they're not as effective as we expected. So we're going to present some proposals to do a full rework on the total of the governance system, with the goals that we want to reduce the friction of governance participation. We want to integrate that new tools that have been appearing related to DAO governance. Two of them are the DWork and the Coordinate. If any of you guys already know the DWork app, you can reach out that we have already created the foundation page there. We're still organizing it, how we're going to do and how we're going to use it and how we're going to work with it. But you can start to check the page on DWork app and start following the foundation. So as soon as we start to use it the proper way, we're going to talk more about it in the future. Also, another goal is to reduce the amount of pull request proposals for code contribution, right? So the initial idea is that all the pull requests that change anything on the code should go through a governance vote. Uh, but what we realized at the end of this first epoch is that we end up generating too much pull request proposal, and that can become a bit overwhelming for the community in general to go through every day into the PRPs, which PRPs are there and listed and voted, and look at the code. So this end up being way too much friction, and we're going to talk a bit about work a bit on how do we rework that at the same time where we reduce this, but at the same time we on some cases, we still go some pull requests. The some pull request types are still required to go through governance votes, right? So, and another one is that we start to work on a model where we organize a bit more how we're going to be more product and project oriented on the development of the client, so we can give more effort and even more community rewards to improvement of features that actually make more sense and are more requested by the community as a whole, right? Also, as I mentioned, the bug reward program rework, we had an initial proposal where we tested how we're going to do, but with the start, we're going to start use the work for that, and we're going to publish a new proposal for a new bug hunt reward where we make it easier, more agile, more uh, less friction to community to submit bugs and to for developers to be rewarded to fix these bugs. Also, another thing we're working is that content creation reward program. So we want to stimulate the community to create content related to not only the client itself, but probably related to markets, strategies, and concepts of the market making use. And also, another project we want to start is a technical documentation reward. So we know that the developer documentation that we have still needs a lot of improvement, and we want to create this program to have more reward, better technical for documentation, improve the technical documentation for developers, right? So because developers, it's community developers is one of the key part of the whole ecosystem. Also, we another thing interesting for traders is that we are designing some trading competition where we want to encourage more people to use the Hummingbot client, and so we want to distribute some rewards for those that use the client and kind of engage into the community as a whole. And Fede is preparing a Hummingbot bootcamp that basically the idea is to have more structured way for developers to learn how to use Hummingbot, how to contribute to the code, how to customize their own strategies with using Hummingbot as the base for their quant trading strategies. Right. So now we do have an open space to go a bit through Gateway V2 overview because we have recently added to the code base, and so Mike will take over from here and talk a bit about the gateway.
But Paul, can you refresh the Canva, please?
Uh, okay, hold on. Let me check here. Refresh. Let me try this.
Yeah. Just because I added slides about half an hour ago, so I think you
Mm,
may have to refresh slides.
right. Okay. Yeah. I'm seeing now. Okay. Here it is. Present. Okay. Okay, let me open again. And here we are. Okay. Right. Here we go.
Yeah. Thanks, Paulo. The last release of Hummingbot really marked a big change, and I think it's one that we're gonna really kind of like be able to really kind of deliver on the value of Hummingbot, because ever since we started, we've wanted to bridge centralized exchanges and decentralized exchanges because the thesis was that exchanges would proliferate, and because of the rise of dexes. we would have this explosion of exchanges all over the world. And that's actually really borne out over the past few years. So we've been working on this gateway module for a long time, and so now we finally feel like we have the right architecture in place. We had an original version, Gateway V1, that unfortunately didn't have the right kind of architecture, so we decided to redo it entirely. And so now the second version, Gateway V2, is now on the master branch. The motivation is to allow the community to add connectors to any DEX and any chain. So that means that any chain is available. It should be able to be supported by Gateway, as well as any type of DEX out there. Um, we also want to really the reason we separated Gateway into its own module and not have it inside of the Hummingbot client is because Gateway is actually written in TypeScript, and that's important because there's many exchanges now on the blockchain side that have their own specific SDKs that really make it easy for you to interact with that exchange. For instance, the Uniswap has an SDK that helps you find the optimal route across any two tokens across all the pools. Same balancer has something similar as well. So if you had to reinvent the wheel and rewrite that in Python in order to make that work with Hummingbot, it's just a lot of work that I think a lot of people don't use. And that's actually why, in our opinion, a lot of the traders out there, the quant trading firms who are very much Python and C++ shops, they haven't really integrated into the DEX landscape as much as they want to. It's not because they don't want to, but for them to put out the engineering effort to hire the actual engineers to do so simply hasn't been done to date. So for us, we want to basically we create something that allows the exchange themselves, the DEXs, to add connectors in on the TypeScript side, and then we have strategies on Hummingbot side that take advantage of them. Another goal was to allow users of Gateway to not even know they're using Gateway, because now when you launch a Hummingbot client in version 1.4 and you type Gateway create, it will automatically pull the Gateway Docker image and walk you through the configuration process. So that allows non-technical users to run DEX arbitrage and market making strategies. And finally, a final motivation to us, as I mentioned, a lot of quant trading firms are, like C++ Python shops. A lot of them have already built their own trading systems. So, it's hard for them to scrap that and start using Hummingbot. However, now that we have this gateway standalone stateless middleware that connects to DEXs, a lot of these larger trading firms are really interested in potentially integrating with Gateway into their own trading system and starting to trade on DEXs as well. So those are the main motivations. And so, Paul, if you go to the next slide, I can show the architecture of Gateway today. So this is how it works. So basically, both Gateway and the Hummingbot client are modules sitting on the same local machine. Gateway holds the keys to different wallets on different blockchains used, and then Hummingbot client basically passes instructions on what to do, like what kind of the strategy sits on the client side, but the actual integrations to the exchanges sits on the DEX side, on the Gateway side. So the main difference between Gateway V2 and our first version is that we've separated the DEX connector interface from the chain connector interface. And this is important because it allows us to reuse a lot of the same work that's been done on the Ethereum class and use that for any EVM compatible blockchain. So right now we have kind of these four DEX connectors you see on the right here, and we currently support two chain interfaces, Ethereum and Avalanche. But the Avalanche interface is really almost a carbon copy. It's really just like a few lines of code that reuses all the ETH mainnet class. So what that means is any EVM compatible chain can also be added to this very easily, whether it's Arbitrum, Optimism, Polygon, or all the various BSC, all the various chains out there can be added very easily, and we can add DEXs kind of isolated as apart from that. So because of that, we have these four currently, in the development version of the code base. But if you scroll to the next slide, Paulo, we actually have a lot of ongoing DEXs being built, DEX connectors being built not just by the foundation or Coin Alpha, but by other community members as well. So we currently, I think OpenOcean just submitted their pull request and pull request proposal for their connector. We have a team led by community member Mike or Dipfit that's building the Solana integration as well as the connectors to two Solana based order book dexes, Mango and Serum. Um, some folks from Coin Alpha, especially James, are working on kind of like some of the other bigger Ethereum connectors like Uniswap v3, PancakeSwap on BSC, Curve, and QuickSwap on Polygon. And finally, we have a few teams from Harmony, the Liquidity DAO that they've set up working on different Harmony connectors. And as well, I believe that the Tonic team, which is a DEX on the Near blockchain, is working on their connectors. So as you can see, because of we think that as the months progress, we're going to see a lot more community development across all blockchains, all dexes, and this is why we think now that just like Hummingbot has 30 plus centralized exchange connectors, tons of forks out there. We think the same thing's going to happen on the DEX side, and I think this will allow really a Hummingbot to become like the bridge between both dexes and sexes, and it allows developers and traders to build all kinds of really interesting trading strategies. So that's it. If you guys have questions about Gateway, please post them on the dev chat channel. If there's interest, we can also create specific Gateway channels in Discord as well for devs.
Also, a reminder: if anyone is interested in developing these connectors, we do have dev grants specific for Gateway V2 connectors. Right. Okay. So next one, what we have is an overview about the new scripts feature. I think it's Federico that's going to present that, right?
Yes, sure. Hi everyone, how are you? Could I present screen, Paulo? Because I
Yeah.
have
Sure. Sure.
like
Sure.
the I will.
Let me stop. Okay. Go on. You can share now.
Okay, I will share. Can you see now?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, the idea this session is to explain like a high level the new feature of the scripts. How could you build from like an idea from scratch? How could you build like a trading bot that do whatever you want? In this example, this is like a draft that we made with Fauci and Mike. He is like a BWAP example. We have to take the order book information about the volume and the price. And with that, we are going to start buying a certain percentage of the volume that is behind certain price. And that price is like a percentage of the mid price. So the idea or how I will start coding any type of script, instead of go to the code directly, I will try to create like a map. First of all, I create like a first draft, and then I create another draft and say, okay, this is how I feel comfortable to run this script. And then I will see, okay, which component I will need. I take this out because instead of using a dictionary, I will use an object there. But the thing is, once you define like your strategy, you could go simply to create a new script. Like here in the folder scripts, I use in the root directory inside Hummingbot. Be careful, don't use this script because the one that is inside the Hummingbot folder is deprecated. So you have to use this one. And it's very important that if you could follow the Notion page that is created in the Coin Alpha. I will share that then in the group. It's the Notion page that Abel made with an explanation of how to configure the PyCharm. Is very useful for that. So the
It's on the
first
docs.
thing.
Right?
What?
It's on the docs page. That page has already been transferred to the documentation.
Okay. Perfect, perfect. Well, the first thing that you have to do is like define this market. Well, it's not that like the first thing, but it's an important thing. If you define this variable with a dictionary, the key is the connector name, like Binance Paper Trade in this case, and this is a set of all the markets that you want. Why you have to define these markets? Because in the start command, you will find that if it's a script strategy, it will initialize the markets that are in the market list. So with this load script class, it will load the class and it will use that variable to load all the markets, have the market ready. And then it assigns to the strategy. This is the initialized market, this is in the Hummingbot application, but this script strategy is using all the markets that you initialize. So that's how it works. And then you have all the markets available to use in self.connectors. You could use all the connectors that are initialized there. So you have a method called on tick, like every strategy, that this runs by default every second. And in this case, the idea of this script is to explain how to access the order book, how to follow the execution of an idea, like in this case, like the VWAP. How could we follow the execution, and also how to create like orders related to that objective of the order book. So this is the code, I think, and also well, is using this event, the order feed event, to update the VWAP. And for the last part of the code is using this format status that I will show you right now how it's working. But the idea is that we could see in the screen what it's doing, what the strategy is doing, and what can we print about the strategy. So I will push this example soon, so you could read up the code and understand what it's doing. But high level is doing uh, this flowchart. Is checking if the VWAP has status. If not, it will init the parameters. I will use the delta then to check if the VWAP is done, or if he has to continue buying. And also, one important thing is I put like the target of the VWAP in USD is like, hey, I want to buy $100 of Bitcoin, instead of saying I want to buy 0.0003 Bitcoin. And in the first moment it will translate that amount of USD with the rate oracle to base volume, and that is the new target. And then the ideal quote volume is if we could buy all the money at market without slippage. The main problem, or the main functionality of this VWAP, if you're a large institution and you want to buy like $1 million of BTC, if you go to buy that to market, you will have a lot of slippage, and it will be not efficient. So the main idea is to buy along the time small amounts of the order book. Then this is like a performance metrics that I initialize at the first time. I query the order book and I say, hey, if I want to buy this amount to market, which will be the base quote that I have to pay, or if I want to sell this amount to market, how much quote I will receive. So that are two metrics that are important, because to compare the execution of the VWAP is very important, because one is if I want to buy all the money at market, and the other one is how the VWAP works. So once it is initialized, it will say, hey, this VWAP is active. If it's active, it will create an order checking how much volume until the spread price that we define, and it will create another candidate. It will adjust the order to the budget, And then if the amount is greater than zero, we will place an order. And as you know, this is a cycle in the own tick, so we run forever. And the event that defeat order will understand if we have to update the VWAP status, the volume remaining, and all those things. I have an idea that I was talking with Abel and other people, that is we could create like different components that could be useful inside these scripts strategies. With that components will be much more easy to develop or much more straightforward to develop complex strategies. But for now, it's like a simple example that will let anyone understand how to query the book and all those things. So for starting this script, the command to do it is using start script and the name of the script. There is a bug that is it's solved right now. We are waiting for an approval to development. If you are trying to create like a new script just today, if you put a class name that is alphabetically higher than script strategy base, it will fail now. But there is a solution to avoid this that is already done here in my environment. But don't worry if it fails right now, because we already solved that and we are going to push the changes. So we run start script simple VWAP example, and it will start. Binance already. And here, as I call the format status, so you could follow like the execution of the VWAP. So here you say, hey, $1,000 with $1,000 in ETH. I don't move the price a lot, so it's not useful like in this example, but it's very useful to know that it's not useful, because if we go to market, we only have like a slippage of $78, and maybe the real code volume that we are going to pay will be higher, because it's like um, the price could move and we could have impact in the price. But what it's doing is each order, we define that the order delay time is 10 seconds. So each 10 seconds you will buy a 0.00 of the volume that is behind the 0.1% of the price spread of the mid from the mid price. This delta is like an progress of the VWAP, and once it reaches the value one, it's like it's done. And volume remaining is the quantity of ETH that we need to buy that is remaining. And we bought 4 ETH right now. And this real quote volume is the real quote that we are spending if we are buying ETH, or we are getting if we are selling the ETH. So the last thing that we had to do once it's done is to check if this real quote volume is higher or lower than going to market, and we will see if the execution of the VWAP is cool or not. We will make some different strategies. Instead of buying to market, we could place like limit orders and wait, or we could continue having different ways of improving this strategy. But it's more for like educational purposes, and understand how to use the order book, how to query the order book in an efficient way from the strategies, and how to also to print the execution of this order. So I don't know if anyone has a question about this, but it will continue.
Yes, hello. Thanks. Will it work on DEXs and exchanges like Uniswap or something else?
Sorry, you say if we could work with exchanges.
Yes, we'll
I
discuss the exchanges.
if you want to use Dexys here,
Yes, with your script.
personally, I will try that this week because I didn't try it before. But I asked to an expert that Isabel is my consultant, and he told me that it's possible to do it,
Yeah,
and we have.
yeah, let me chime in here actually. So yeah, we just introduced Gateway and scripts in the same version. So currently, I think right now, if you just try to use it out of the box, there's probably some issues. However, making scripts usable with gateway connectors will be one of our big focal points over the next few months. We actually have another engineer, Fauzi, who's kind of like specializing in gateway, is kind of working on a gateway enabled script along with Fade right now. So we should have more examples of kind of like scripts that are trading on both dexes and sexes pretty shortly.
Because why I'm asking, because there are a lot of ordered book exchanges coming, like Zigzag and so on. A
Yep,
lot of on Cosmos and other chains.
that's right.
And
That's
some
right.
other.
Yes. Yeah, that's actually exactly that's right. Why we for gateways, not just for AMMs. It's also we also have a central limit order book interface that's being created right now. By the it's actually by the Solana Serum team. So we have a team building a connector to Serum, which is an order book DEX for gateway that uses a obviously an order book interface. So that interface can also be used for other dexes like Zigzag. I believe Zigzag is actually currently building their own Hummingbot connector, as well as other other order book dexes as well.
So
Did that answer
yeah,
your question, Sergey?
Yes, yes, thank you.
yeah. I would I would say that the goal is that each part of the code is independent model and they communicate with each other. So connectors is going to be one model of the code, and then everything else it communicates with the rest of it. So you could plug connect any of the connector, be it sex or dex, into the script and use and build your strategy around it. Right. Okay. Reminder: we will also have another uh, section at the end for more questions. So if no question was answered right now, we can wait till the end. So next one, Tech Review DAO is going to do a quick update on what they have been working on. So about just a quick reminder that the goal of the Tech Review DAO, we have these 5 members, and is to go through the pull requests created on the Hummingbot repo and uh, examine the code and see what they think about the code is doing, and check if there's anything wrong or bad or malicious or anything related to that, right? So let me go through here. So yeah, Abel, you can jump in.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Well, to start with, this month, last month, May, started with 53 PRs in consideration, and at the end of the month, we have 55 PRs in our list of things to review. And during May, 61 PRs were created in total. And as you can see there in the graphic, during May we have marked 8 PRs as discarded because we are not receiving any feedback from the developer. And 33 in total PRs were approved. We finished the month with 4 PRs in review stage, and there were 4 PRs that have been rejected by technical for technical reasons, and in total we have 23 pending PRs pending to be reviewed, and from the 33 approved PRs during May. a total of 28 PR has been merged. So we have been able to merge 84.8% of all the approved PRs. And besides that, I just wanted to remind everyone that the general rules we are following in the technical law, the PRs, will be discarded or considered abandoned once if we don't receive any feedback from the developer during 1 month after asking for changes or asking for details. And all PRs must have a development as the base branch. They should provide a complete description of the change in the details of the PR. Without that description, neither us in the technical DAO nor the community will be able to understand what the PR intention is, and also the community will not be able to vote for or against the PR. Please include always the link to the PRP in the PR. We have seen many PRs during the month where the PRP was created, but it was not the link to the PRP was not present in the PR. So for anyone taking a look at the PR, it was impossible to understand that the PRP was already created and check the status of the PRP. And also remember that it's important to for every PR to pass the validation done by the validation workflow. And if when you post a PR, the validation workflow is not running, you can ask either Federico or Fauci. They will be able to enable the execution of the validation workflow. And finally, for connectors PRs, please remember that all connectors should follow the latest golden templates that are Binance and Binance Perpetua. And that's everything from the technical the tech review there.
Right. Awesome. Great. Okay. So next one, what we have is the. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
So
There was
Pablo,
a.
coming back
Yeah.
to you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Sorry. I was muted. Didn't notice it. Yeah, I thought I added an extra slide here for the Latoken. But Ed, feel free to join the stage, and if you have any presentation, let me know. I will stop sharing.
All right. Um, can anyone see my screen? Everyone?
Okay, hold on. Let me stop my sharing. And yeah, you're streaming. Okay, yeah,
All right.
it's up.
Okay, so my name is Ed Roundaal. I'm a liquidity bots developer at Latoken. Today I will talk about our Latoken connector integration and why we implemented it. First, I will do a company introduction, and finally, we can do a QA. Also, Santiago and Nias are here. Those are two of my teammates, which will help you answer any relevant questions. Yeah, so Latoken is a cryptocurrency exchange which specializes in low market cap tokens. So we have around 85 venture capital backed tokens. From the top 30 tokens we already trade, so the main tokens, we also have this VC backed tokens. Yeah, we are a fast growing exchange. We have 2.2 million plus accounts and a diverse team with the teammates across the globe, and we operate in 20 plus countries and across all continents. We've broad reach with around 420k Telegram subscribers and a multitude of a revenue of above 18 million USD. Yeah, so the difficulty we face is that from the VC-backed tokens, which are mainly low liquidity coins, we want to improve liquidity on these pairs. So our integration would enable everyone with an internet connection to do market making activities on our exchange. So following this, I will give a demonstration of our connector working on on our exchange, but the Avalonada market making strategy. Let me switch to my machine. So here's our web interface visible. And in the background, the Avalonada strategy is running, and you can see here one. So for example, these are orders that are currently placed by our connector. Let me show you some statements I will send to Hummingbot that display our correct working. So we can, for example, retrieve balances, and those are equal to the values we have in our account. I can show you the configuration of the current strategy. So this is the strategy that's currently running, the Avalonada strategy on XRP USDT. It's running infinitely, and these are the settings which are currently being used. We hope to have this accepted as soon as it's approved by the Q&A team. And I think this was it, guys. If there are any questions, then let me know.
Right, awesome. So yeah, new connector for everyone to play around and look into it. So at the end of the presentation, as always, so anyone from the community have any questions, comments, suggestions, feel free to unmute yourself and present your case. So if any have any questions for Ed from Latoken, also feel free to open up your mic and ask anything you want or suggest or open up anything you want to the community, right?
Okay, I could ask if possible.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
go
So
on.
what about
Go ahead.
Hummingbot token? Is it useful in any case? I mean, will you create some kind of pools, or how to reinvest in your token? I mean, maybe you will share some revenue from bots or something, or maybe it's already exists and I missed something. Can you explain, please, Chris?
Yeah, let me take that question actually. So there's actually a couple of ideas on our Commonwealth forum right now that we've kind of like proposed for potentially how to use a token. So I think one is related to how it's used in trading competitions. The other one is how it might be used to certify certain exchanges. Because right now, there's lots of exchanges, but it's hard for the community to know which ones are really good or not. So it's also another idea for the exchange to stake the token as well. I would say we're actually actively seeking feedback on those proposals. We're working on some ideas of our own. But overall, we do think that because the community of Hummingbot is really about connecting exchanges with traders and having them kind of use a single open source code base that can do all this from exchanges. We do think that the use of the token should be something around kind of like connecting exchanges and traders and enabling both sides to kind of like basically get benefit somehow. So that's why I would say right now, if you guys are interested, please comment on the ideas on the forum, submit your other ideas. But one of the goals that we have as foundation is to ensure that the HBOT token is an asset that is going to help the community, signal, kind of like get rewards and do other things that improve the overall usage and quality of the Hummingbot code base.
But I mean, why shouldn't I sell it immediately? Because
Right.
in some
Yeah.
fixes you could keep it and get some rewards.
Well, so I would say if you want to sell, then you should absolutely go and sell right now. However, if you look at the size of our community and how big it is, how important Hummingbot is across the the area, if you don't think it's any use, then go ahead and sell.
No, I mean, are you planning to add some value for holders? I mean,
Right. Yes. So it's. I think that your question is, are we planning to add value for holders? And I think the my answer would be, I think there's proposals that are put forth. I think if the community feels like one of these proposals is a good direction, then it could. But right now, I think the foundation itself, like we're basically going to do what the community wants. So I think it's also up to the community to propose what can be done with the token. And so there already exist a couple of proposals. That's why it's like I think it's I would encourage you to maybe like see what's already put out there, and see if you agree with them or if you kind of like want to propose something yourself as well. That also.
Yeah, also take into account to do proposals or to decide on other community members' proposals. You will need to have HBOT. So if you are planning on selling them, you won't be able to do that, right? The added value of having HBOT is being able to decide the direction the community and the foundation is taking. So that's really a huge added value already.
Yeah. So currently, the use case of the bot is definitely the governance, where community can be able to create proposals and to vote on the direction of the project. But we at the foundation team, we are talking internally to create some ideas on give additional uses to the token. And as Mike said, community participation is pretty key here. So uh, if anyone from the community, you have an idea of how we could improve based on the whole system, use the tokens in a way where it adds value to the whole ecosystem, both exchanges, traders, and developers. So yeah, we are always open and we encourage everyone to post suggestions and discussions on the forum.
Yeah, actually, on the forum, there's actually there's an HBOT token topic on the forum. So there's currently 4 ideas there, actually, and one of them actually comes from a community member about like distributing minor rewards as well. So I think I always say we at the Finisher we want to support, we actually really want to support more use cases of the token. But I think the point I just want to make, sorry again, and sorry for kind of being a bit myself, is that it's not really up to us. It's really up to the community. And so the only thing we can do is kind of like really like take the ideas that community has, or even the ones that we generate, put them forward, see which ones actually get traction, and if the community votes for them, then we will actually go ahead and implement those systems. But this is important because ultimately, as a nonprofit foundation, we're really just here to really kind of like to exercise the will of the HBOT token holder community.
Hi,
So
I have
go off for free.
Oh, okay. Actually, I was wondering, is there any way for us to access the delivery-based future contracts? So, for example, on Binance, you have a June ending BTC or ETH future delivery-based contract. Is there any way to access those instruments through our connector?
No, Federico or Bell can be more clear on this, but as far as I know, they're not accessible because the logic of the connector is a bit different, and we haven't anyone to edit. But
What?
uh,
No,
but yeah,
There is currently no Binance connector or no any connector really working with futures. So we have connectors working with perpetuals, for example, for Binance and Bybit, but there is no connector available for futures.
yeah. The reason why is because so we mapped to certain exchange interfaces essentially. So currently we support 3 interfaces: spot markets, perpetual futures, and AMM or automatic market maker exchanges. So I think that Hummingbot can absolutely be used for other market types, whether it's like counter date futures, options, or other products. However, I think the first step there is to define the interface. So it's kind of like, given how Hummingbot works, like what is the how does a connector actually, what endpoints are exposed in that connector, and how does a strategy then consume those endpoints? So currently, because the crypto market has kind of congregated on these three market types, spot, perpetual, and AMM, I'm not sure we really see the demand out there from exchanges to add other types, or the community. However, I think, uh, please mute, please. However, I think we are very much open. Um, so, for instance, like there's actually a proposal for options. There's actually, I think there's actually seems to be more interest in people to support options. So I think that actually would probably be the next kind of like market type we support. Counter day futures, I think, could be interesting as well. Um, I don't see many crypto exchanges trading lots of counter day futures, but if there's interest, I think that if you want to propose like kind of like how many might connect to those exchanges, we're open to it. But I think it has to be community driven, because so as everything is.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was asking this because, and I also opening this for other members because, there is an opportunity for arbitrage or basis there. So that's why I was like, uh, maybe I will propose that in the community, but just thought to share.
So you're saying there's arbitrage opportunities between perpetual exchanges and counter date expiration future exchanges. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, I see there is a arbitrage or uh, cross exchange market making opportunity in terms of like delivery based future contract with let's say spot.
Okay, got it. What exchanges are you referring to? Like which exchanges that trade like if counter features, it has like the liquidity that allows you to kind of like, you know like Binance futures or other exchanges.
So far, I have seen of only two uh, exchanges. One is FTX,
Right.
because and the Binance, because I think these are the two major ones. They typically have the delivery-based future
Right.
contracts listed.
Mm.
So I see that as a yeah, I see there in those two exchanges. I would say.
Okay. Yeah, this is
But
a fair point.
unfortunately, I think we do not have a FTX connector for perpetual, I guess. So anyway, we don't have a perpetual and FTX as well. But, but the
Yeah,
future
yeah,
delivery,
right.
yeah.
The FTX perpetual connector is probably going to come pretty soon because I think there's already a governance
Okay.
proposal for it. I think CoinOff has already built it, so it should be in the code base probably in the
Oh
next
yeah,
few weeks. So, but
that will be
yeah, I do think you have a good point actually, which is I think that there are arbitrage and kind of like market making opportunities for counter to futures, and given that we already have FTX and Binance connectors, it probably wouldn't be that much additional work to add support for counter futures.
right,
Um,
right, right.
I think my main point is why like I think so far we've had like really try to make sure we grow in a direction that's gonna actually benefit everyone. So we've tried to concentrate essentially on a few different exchange types. So I think the main work from a calendar day future type is actually more from like a product or like design exercise, which is like what are the trade interfaces? How does the how would a strategy consume them, and how are the interface displayed in the Hummingbot UI? So I do think that if there's interest in community in doing that, I think that if someone wants to propose that, or they want to really push us to do that, I think part of it is like maybe creating the motivation for it. So I think if you think this is a direction, my suggestion would be to create like just like write something up on our Commons forum, and post that on Discord, and see if there's other people in the community that want are really interested in working on it as well. And I think if there is, then I think the foundation could put up a dev grant or something like that to get people to build it.
Right, right. I will do that. Thanks for that. And then let's very another quick question here. I'm sorry for taking somebody else's time here, but I'm a little bit novice to it. I'm studying the hummingbird. I like the open source code. I'm trying to understand all of that. So strategies. I was wondering, like, there is this hate strategy, and uh, I mean, eh, is there any utility of that in the sense that, whenever I see, if I try to hedge any pure marketing or perpetual any other strategy using that hedge strategy, uh, I in my mind I'm seeing that, oh, there is always going to be a loss, because every time I hedge something, it will going to take away that whatever the spread I have earned on other side of the pure market or perpetual. Then I was wondering, what is the use of this hedge strategy if it is not going to is going to take counterbalance that profit I earn on other strategy. So I was wondering, in if any case, if you have, I mean, I'm someone who has created this strategy, definitely has some use in mind. So I maybe, and I read through document, but I failed to understand, and I just thought to quickly ask here.
I would say that this would take a discussion to another situation that's about how does the hedging work, is involved with hedging. But what I can say is generally that executing a hedge, the idea is that you are going to be market neutral, right? So you have a long position, a short position, direction the market goes, it will make no effect on what the result of the trade. But this difference that you see is basically the cost to hedge, right? So since you have fees involved, spread involved, things like that, is that if you remove these factors that cause the cost of the hedge, you're going to be a perfect 100% neutral. But since there are these other factors, these are small things that the trader needs to take in consideration if he wants to hedge, if he wants to use the hedge or not. So yeah, that's a bit more discussion about the strategy itself. So yeah, I don't know. I think you could a good maybe start a thread on forum to discuss a bit more how to improve the hedge strategy itself, right? So there's a lot of different places where we could go through here. But yeah, my suggestion is that we should try to use the general forum or Discord to talk with other traders to share this experience with using hedge strategies and the costs involved in it.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. So we reach 1 hour for the community call. So I'm going to close it up for now for today. But as always, so if you don't have questions, feel free to reach the foundation and use the other channels that we have, the Discord channels, and also the Commonwealth forums for more long-term discussions. And okay, to remember, based on what we have discussed today, is that governance and participation of the community is key. So let's say if there is an idea to develop a certain model for Hummingbot, this can always be gone through create a discussion into the forums, creating a proposal to fund this development, creating a governance proposal to allocate HBOT tokens to develop that model, that part of the code, things like that. And so just anyone can open a proposal, right? So the governance, uh, the snapshot, the snapshot only have the requirement of a certain amount of tokens you need to have in the wallet, but anyone can create a proposal that try tries to give an idea, direction to the whole project, right? So yeah, that was it for today. Thank you all for coming, and see you next month for another community call. But we are always around, so feel free to reach anyone from the team to talk about anything related to the product. See ya. Bye.
Yeah, thank you guys.